Are your expectations getting in the way?
I know we use this phrase all the time, but it's very appropriate. What a great question. And I'm really excited about how we're going to attack this one. By the way, good to see you again,
Yeah.
Nate.
Great to be seen, and good to see you. I hope the wrist is recovering nicely. Bueno. Well done.
Hitting
But
all
yeah,
the milestones.
great question.
Yes. So we're gonna talk about expectations versus agreements.
Yes.
And we led into this in the last episode 57, I believe. 57, where we were talking about being a great ideal sports parent in the preseason and communication with coaches and creating your own parent pledge of things that you're going to do. And I think we'll be able to, this will be a nice little, I was going to say sandwich, but you need something in between. This will be a nice
This is an enhancement.
Enhancement.
A big enhancement.
So this is like adding some peanut butter to your chocolate.
Spicy mustard to your meat sandwich.
Sick. Nice. I'm going to stick with peanut butter and chocolate. Yeah, one of the greatest. I mean, if you're talking about all-time combinations in the history of Earth, peanut butter and chocolate.
And I'm really hungry, so let's not talk about that, because I will just eat about 6 pounds of candy when I get out of here.
Okay, if we're going to talk about expectations versus agreements, I have to bring in our buddy Steve Chandler, the godfather of coaching.
Absolutely.
We talked about him before in other episodes, and I want to give credit where credit is due. This is something that I wish I had learned sooner in my professional career, sooner in my marriage,
my parenting journey,
way sooner in my parenting journey. And I'm going to read, because I want to get his words right, because I think that's important. And he has a quote where he talks about expectations. He says, when we have a lot of expectations, we have a lot of judgment of other people, a lot of disappointment, and lots of misunderstanding. A life of expectations brings a lot of fear, anxiety, and disappointment, and a sense of betrayal by others, and it is not necessary. What do you think about that, Nate?
That's a great quote, because how much of the garbage in our relationships do we bring on ourselves because of expectations and unmet expectations? And like they're so, like, he just goes through the list: the judgment, the disappointment, the misunderstanding, fear, anxiety. All of those things come from these expectations being unmet, and it's not necessary. We don't have to go down that road if we get ahead of it.
And if you're leading with expectations, this is where you have to become a great mind reader. And I don't know if I'm going to speak for all of the husbands out there. Maybe there's that guy somewhere that is just an expert mind reader, but I'm terrible. I am getting better.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's taken
humans are bad at this.
Nearly 40 years of marriage to become, below average at this. But if you're reading,
women are more empathic. Like, they get the feelings, but as human beings, we're not mind readers. Like, that's not who we are. And so much of the expectations are natural. We have them. Like, I mean, you and I have had to deal with this. Everybody has to deal with this. Any new relationship you go into, you buy a ticket to go to a sporting event, you have expectations for what that's supposed to be like. You buy the pay-per-view UFC fight, you're expecting a great fight, and then it turns into a knockout in 5 seconds, and you're like, unmet expectations.
Yeah. I mean, besides the mind reading, this is where we get into guessing and assuming. And if our relationships are going to be built upon guessing, assuming, mind reading.
Not a
This is where
strong
you go back
foundation.
to, this is where Steve is right on, when Steve Chandler, when he is saying there's going to be lots of letdowns and disappointments. And I would say the misunderstanding. Like, you're not going to be on the same page. You're not going to be on the same wavelength with other people in your relationships.
Yeah. And you have the second Steve Chandler quote you have on here it sums that up super well.
You got it?
Do you mind if I read it? Yeah, I got it right here. This is,
it would
he
be
adds
great
to
if you
this
could
by
do it.
saying,
It would be great if you could do it in his voice, but we haven't worked on that, but go ahead.
No. So this is what he says, not in Steve Chandler's voice. Wandering around life with all of these high expectations for your children, your spouse, yourself, that's neurotic. And what that does is set up nothing but a life of disappointment. It's exactly what you're just talking about. Those expectations that we have, that just sets us up for a less than joyful life.
Yeah, so this begs a couple of questions and or statements. My brain is swirling here. And I even thought this when I first came across this. I thought, wait a minute. We're going for high performance here. Yeah, I mean, you and I are high performance coaches, and we're working with high achieving people. We're working with people that do have high expectations of themselves. And now you're saying that, wait, high expectations lead to disappointment, lead to assuming, lead to mind reading and guessing and misunderstanding. So what is a missing puzzle piece here?
So this is it's going to sound semantical, but it's critical for the understanding, because the people that say, I need to have high expectations for myself to push myself, they're not wrong. They're just using the wrong word.
They're
not wrong.
So
what
I was just going to say, so it's good to want to be better. It's good to want to
goal oriented too. It's good to want
set a high
something.
goal, set a stretch goal. This is all good.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Yes, all good. The difference is what they're actually talking about isn't expectations, it's standards. Expectations are wholly focused on results. We expect a certain outcome. We expect a certain result. And that's where the problem lies. A standard isn't based on the result. It's based on the process that generates the desired result. So if I want to have a team that wins a lot of games, I need to set the standards for how are we going to show up at practice every day? How are we going to travel? How are we going to communicate as a team? How are we going to do all these things? They're all they're all process-oriented things, standards. So the high-performing people we work with that are ultra successful, they want to have these high standards, and that's what they want. So it's getting them to understand the expectation is the result. You can't control the result, but you can control your effort in achieving and accomplishing the standards. So that's what we're getting after here.
Beautifully said. I love the way this allows us to focus on process-oriented goals. And I think something that's really critical when you're thinking about this, and we're going to move later into Creation Corner and use an actual example, because as you know, Nate, you and I, we're actually creating a parent tool out of this called the Agreement Generator, where you go through some simple exercises, and we're still fine-tuning that tool, which will be available on the website. But this is, I know I have used these methods and this technique with multiple clients, including couples, and it has just been fantastic. And I've used it in my own marriage. It's been terrific. It would have been terrific. I just used terrific twice in, I think, a matter of 3 or 4 words.
It's terrific how much you used it.
It would have been tremendous had I used this back as a young husband, as a young parent, as a young coach, because I can go back and think about different expectations, assumptions, that led to disappointment, letdown, misunderstanding. And in most of the cases, it was me. You know, I was the one that was letting down. I was the one that my assumptions caused an issue. But anyway, moving forward. So a critical thing, Nate, is that this has to be, if you're doing an agreement, this is not an ultimatum. This is not manipulation. This is not something that you come in and you decree and that you set down. You're going to lay down the law. You're going to make a rule with your spouse, or you're going to make a rule with your team. These are
the expectations.
Yeah, this must be a co-creation. And let's face it, if the other person doesn't want to co-create in this situation, then you're probably not ready for the agreement generator. You need to work on you need to work on know, love, and trust, and you need to work on building that relationship so you can get to where you both are ready for an agreement. But we always go back to honesty. I mean, all progress starts with the truth. And so are we ready to go right into the, you know what, I want you to tell us the story. Let's use the example of parent communication and parent to parent. I sound like a mess right now. It's because my mind is seriously spinning at 150. What do you call those things in science? The thing that goes around, a centrifuge or something?
Yeah, that's one of them. There's a lot of things that spin around inside.
Oh, geez, you had to say there was a lot of them. Now there's a lot more that I don't know about it. But
are you talking about the story with the parent in the stands that had a problem with yelling at the refs?
Yes, because I think we may use this spectator behavior as an example.
Yeah. That's a good one to use as an example. So I had early in my coaching career, I was just an assistant coach, but we had a parent, and they had multiple kids on the team, and they were into the games, and it was like a real genuine passion, but he would always direct that passion. The dad would always direct his passion towards the refs and was really, really brutal to him. And he was really loud when he was doing it.
This is so unbelievable. I cannot believe that such a thing would happen.
Anyway, so it drove his kids crazy because like they would be trying to compete and they would be embarrassed by what he was doing up in the stands. And so they cooked up this little agreement. They worked this out together, and the dad agreed that he would bring a book to the games. And so when the games got heated, he would open the book, and if he felt inclined to yell at the officials, then he had to like look down and just start trying to read the book. Even if he wasn't like actually reading the book, it was just enough of a distraction where it was more of a physical reminder to him, don't yell at the refs because I'm actually distracting my own kids and making them perform worse. So he agreed to have that, and it was kind of funny to see him go through that, and it helped.
It's almost like a classical conditioning response there to where he's
a little bit.
I like that. Well, do you remember last time we talked about a parent communication policy that I had? I want to test Nate and see if he remembers the three things that were off limits.
I'm learning the three things that with the parent expectations that you had for your parents in your program, courtesy of Bruce Brown, was these will not be talked about: playing time, team strategy, and other players' status on the team, or other players in general.
Right. So parents,
I don't get anything for that.
Oh, well,
I thought I was going to get like a treat, a chocolate peanut butter treat, or like a good job, Nate.
I mean,
I had an expectation. There was a reward for that. There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Now I feel validated.
Yeah. So
unmet expectation right there.
Yeah, a husband, and that's true. We need to make an agreement about that. So let's take husband, wife, two parents, and they want to be ideal sports parents, and so they're going to implement that. They can make an agreement together. They can co-create this agreement and help support each other in it and say, we agree that neither one of us is going to do any of these three things. You could also do it on the flip side and say, we are going to do these things. So now we're getting into the parent pledge that we had in Creation Corner last time, in the last episode 57, where we challenged parents to create a pledge, something that they would pledge to do as an ideal sports parent for their teen son or daughter. So, and you described a great agreement for spectator behavior. So this is something that we want to challenge parents to do, and it there we go.
We're creating.
Yeah, we're creating. So you're going to have to do some writing on this, and this is going to be part of our agreement generator tool, but I have found this to be very effective. And that is, first of all, writing. And by the way, once you create an agreement, it's just so you know, it's going to be broken because we're human. Somebody's going to break the agreement. But what's awesome about making an agreement that Steve Chandler likes to point out is that if an agreement is broken, you almost have an agreement about the agreement that, okay, we're going to go back and recalibrate. We're going to go back and revise. We're going to go back and review. And you focus on the agreement rather than on, oh, what's wrong with you? Or, why did you do this? We had an agreement. Why did you break it? It's like, okay, wait, we both agreed on this. We're both on board. I messed up. I'm sorry. And is there anything that we can do to strengthen the agreement? So that's a little plug going ahead for what happens when the agreement is broken, because usually right out of the gates, until it becomes more of a habit and more an established practice between you and the other person, there's going to be a slip up. And that's actually just to be expected. Expected, I just used the expectation word. So here's what you're going to write down, parents. First of all, let's just use spectator behavior. You're going to write down initially what you think is most important to the other person, not you. What is most important to the other person? And then when you get together, you are going to discuss what you think, because what we're doing is we're doing some assumptions ahead of time. And you might be right on, or you might find out that, oh, that's not actually important to the other person, which brings us to the second part of this exercise, which is you are going to rate everything that is important to you on a 1 to 10 scale. So for example, if I asked you, Nate, what if I said, I'm going to play the part of the teen, and I think that it's really important for you to let the officials know that they made a mistake. So I think that's really, really important to you. So if I asked you, how important is it to you to let the official know that he or she made a mistake, and how would you rate it on a 1 to 10 scale?
A 2.
Oh,
it's not really that important.
See, you did it so often that I thought it was really important to you. But you can see how
and that's part of the fun of the activity right there, is I have to confront the reality of, oh, wow, it actually isn't that important to me. Why am I doing it?
Exactly. You're going to really do some productive thinking as you go through this.
Yeah.
So then you will just start to create the agreement from this. So maybe it turns into, I will agree. Well, do it from your side. If you're the dad that's had all of these outbursts in previous situations, what might be an example of an agreement that you decided to go with?
I agree I definitely agree to back off the refs, because it's not that important to me that I let them know that they did something wrong. what is more important to me is that my kids feel supported, and that's what I'm trying to communicate by yelling at the refs, but it's not the right thing. So I've got to do something to distract myself. So now I end up, okay, I'll bring a book instead. Give myself something to center on, to remind me, hey, my kids want me to read this, instead of yelling at the refs.
Right.
Something like that.
And for me as the teen, it might come out that something that is important to me is, maybe you say that what you think was important for me, because that's the initial exercise, is
how
that,
important is it for you to feel like I'm supporting you?
8 or 9. So how would that?
And then the follow-up question is, how do you best feel supported by me?
Right. When
I yell at the refs, do you feel supported?
No, I feel supported when you yell something positive to the team. I don't mind that. I love it. I think it's cool.
Cool. And so now as the parent feeding off of that, I can now say, okay, well, maybe one of the things that I can do to replace my behavior yelling at the refs is, if the ref make a bad call, I now need to make a positive comment towards our team rather than saying something negative about the refs. Bounce back, guys, make the next play. Something like that. But that's the co-creation process you just heard right there.
Right. You can use this with anything, Nate. Within any relationship, employer to employee, business partner to business partner, husband to wife, parent to coach, coach to coach, player to coach, parent to teen, teen to teen. Trust me, your relationships are going to improve if you ditch the expectations, because, as you said, they're getting in the way.
Good stuff, man. Hopefully parents have had a chance to think about some important things, because ultimately what we want is, we want you to be the impactful, critical piece to the puzzle in your kids' lives that you want to be. You're everything to them. Whether you feel like it or not, from them, you mean the world to your kids. So you showing up and being the best you could be helps them immensely.
Right. So I challenge parents to experiment with this with your spouse, with a friend, maybe even before, or if you feel you're ready, go right to an agreement with your teen. But I would challenge you to experiment with another adult, and it may be a little messy at first, maybe a little awkward. You might have to explain it to them, but I promise you that this will be something that you enjoy, and you will see some great outcomes from it, and you'll be excited to apply it to your relationship with your teen.
Yep. Any questions that pop up in the process, let us know. createtransformbecome@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your experiences with creating agreements, and any questions that come up, we'd love to address. Thanks for being such great, loyal listeners.
And we hope that by the time this episode airs, we will have the agreement generator added to our toolbox. See you, Nate.
Yes, sir.
See you.
On behalf of Steve Galley, I'm Nate Crandall, and we thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, we would appreciate it very much if you would leave us a 5-star review and some glowing comments. We also encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family who are parents of athletes and performers. And if you want to explore further and see what Steve and I are creating to help thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please visit our company's website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you'll find a growing number of resources to help you elevate your performance. Thank you again for your support, and we encourage you to create a magical relationship with your athlete and performer.